Welcome, Bulldog fans, to Davis Wade Stadium and Scott Field, where at 6:30, Mississippi State kicks it off against Auburn. The mist has come back, Steve, but the field looks in great position. The Bulldogs are out there warming out now as we get ready to go. Quick impressions on what you think Mississippi State will do tonight and what they need to do.
Well, the main thing is control the football. I mean, Auburn, we expect them to run the football with Cadillac Williams, a former All-SEC running back, and Will Friend, an offensive line coach, calling the plays tonight. We do expect them to run the football, or at least try to establish the run. Bulldogs at times have kind of been stingy against the run as they were against Alabama. So if that effort comes up tonight, you could see some separation early in this ball game and allow the Bulldogs perhaps to have maybe an easier second half. And I think, David, one of the big things tonight, State's really close to full strength. Now, we do want to share that Emmanuel Forbes, and I tweeted this out earlier, not expected to play tonight. Could play next week. A lot of it's going to depend on how he responds to treatment. Jaden Crumedy, his long-awaited 2022 debut is here. Dylan Johnson missed the Alabama game, also rehabbed during the bye week. He was expected to play along with LaQuinton Sharp. So outside of Emmanuel Forbes, State is expected to be at full strength tonight.
And with Auburn, Robbie Ashford can make some plays with his feet. He can pass. But like you say, this is an Auburn team that likes to run. The field is in good condition, as I mentioned, so that should not be an effect on the play calling. But Bulldog defense, yes, they let Kentucky run really effectively against them. But as you said, the Auburn game, or go back to the LSU game, they contain the ground game. Yes, Ashford can run, but he is not the threat to run like a Bryce Young or a Daniels.
Well, that's true, but he is the guy that can hurt you on the ground. And if you go back to that LSU ball game, State couldn't get out of their own way, and next thing you know, in that fourth quarter, LSU's able to have some success running the football. But I think it was really a matter of the defense gassing out because offense couldn't find any rhythm. This Auburn defense is a real challenge in many respects. That Auburn front is really good, even though they haven't been elite at rushing the passer. Not even the team that we saw last year defensively. So, State's going to have to go out there, find a way to establish some rhythm early. If State can get out to a big start in the first quarter like we've seen on this field, these Bulldogs are 4-0 and have scored 40 points or more in each of those 4 wins. If State gets off to a pretty good start tonight, I think you would expect the same.
You mentioned rhythm. We were at the Kentucky and Alabama games, and post-game State coaches and players mention rhythm more often than a Motown band, which we were just discussing pregame, in fact, there. But there's a lot of truth to it. When Will Rogers gets in a rhythm and is seeing the defense right, mixing run and pass by what the defense gives, not what's predetermined on the sideline, this offense really presents challenges to defenses because they just feel like the State offense is making the right decisions, attacking them in the right places. We saw that in 3-game win streak. They got away from Kentucky. Do you think they can get it back against this Auburn defense?
Well, I do, and I think there were some extenuating circumstances with Kentucky, obviously with Dylan Johnson, LaQuinton Sharp going down. But, and Mike Leach said it in postgame, we tried to do too much. I think they limited our possessions. They shortened the game on you, so you go out there and you have maybe some anxiety rather than urgency, and I think State tried to do too much, and Kentucky won the game. I expect Auburn to try to mimic that same game plan. Come out, slow the game down, try to establish the run, try to win a game in the 20s. This Auburn team, one of the worst scoring teams in the Southeastern Conference, averaging right at 21 points a game. So they can't win a shootout with State, so they're going to try to dictate terms and make this a game on Auburn's terms.
And you have to think that in the back of their minds, certainly veteran Tigers, they remember last year. 28-3 lead, State scores for halftime and just takes over the second half. Really maybe a transitional game for Mike Leach and his tenure here at State to build upon. That's got to be in their minds. By same token, it must be in Mississippi State minds because they know if they play their game, they can score bunches on this Auburn defense.
They can, and speaking of that ball game last year, the thing that kind of sticks out to me in our review of the game, Auburn scored 6 points in the second half of that game. It wasn't just the Bulldog offense that got going. The Bulldog defense, who was shredded the first, 25 minutes of that game, was outstanding, and that's a tribute to those young men and their coaches. Zach Arnett probably has a little bit of maybe an axe to grind after last year. And granted, you don't have a lot of the same personnel, but the reality of it is the helmet sticker is the same. And a lot of people need to understand this too. While this is a down Auburn team at 3-5, this coaching staff has been dismantled in many respects. It's still Auburn. They still have players, and State can ill afford to go out and play haphazardly and just kind of show up and expect to win.
And, of course, Mississippi State now 5-3 overall, 2-3 SEC. They're playing to even the record in the Southeastern Conference standings and improve their bowl status, which, if they win tonight, they will be bowl eligible for a 13th straight year. Auburn, you don't know what kind of mindset they're coming into the game. It's just a game where, Steve, really you probably need to deliver the first, second, and third blows. I do expect Auburn to come out and play fur on fire, if you will. But if Mississippi State stays steady, plays their own game, by the time this evening rolls around, the Bulldogs should be bowl eligible again.
Yeah, you certainly think so, David. And, I think State can get in Auburn's legs a little bit. We talk about playing your game. If State's able to get a lead in the first quarter and then maybe get to the halftime intermission with the lead, I think in that second half, State can put this game away. And that's the biggest part of this. State's got to play their game and not play Auburn's.
So, game evening here on Scott Field and Davis-Wade Stadium. Still a good crowd on the junction, as we can see out there, even though some mist has been falling. The rain, not so much, but still pretty damp. That shouldn't dampen the atmosphere for a key SEC West shootout for the Bulldogs. Our team from Gene Space 24/7 will be reporting in full after the game with Mike Nemeth, Steve Robertson, Robbie Falk, Paul Jones, and myself. So check us in afterwards and hopefully be reading and listening about a Mississippi State victory. For our crew here at Scott Field, this is David Murray.